At a time of wars reshaping the world, China seizes its moment. In Beijing, Xi Jinping hosts the SCO summit. Putin at his side, Modi in attendance, Kim Jong Un making a rare appearance. 20 leaders rally under China's banner, projecting a multipolar order. And as America's rivals gather, Donald Trump remains conspicuously absent from the world stage. China, hosting the annual SCO summit, welcomed nearly 20 world leaders, including Russia's Vladimir Putin, India's Narendra Modi, and Belarus's Alexander Lukashenko, in a bid to position itself as a stable counterweight to the unpredictable US-led global order. In his opening remarks, Xi Jinping delivered a thinly veiled critique of US hegemony, urging member states to unite against power politics and dominance, though he avoided naming Washington or Donald Trump directly. Meanwhile, US President Trump maintained a conspicuous absence from the public stage.
We have taken the lead in proposing a global governance concept based on consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits, practicing genuine multilateralism, deepening cooperation with the United Nations and other international organizations, and constructively participating in international and regional affairs, always standing on the side of international fairness and justice. We advocate cultural inclusiveness and mutual learning among civilizations, and oppose hegemony and power politics. Fourth, we uphold fairness and justice, promote a correct understanding of World War II history, and oppose Cold War thinking, bloc confrontation, and acts of bullying. We safeguard the international system with the United Nations at its core, support the multilateral trading system centered on the World Trade Organization. We should advocate for equal and orderly multipolarization of the world, inclusive economic globalization, and promote the construction of a more just and equitable global governance system. We work to build a more just and reasonable global governance system.
To deepen economic ties within the bloc, Xi proposed the creation of an SCO development bank and announced $1.4 billion in loans over the next 3 years, aiming to leverage the SCO's mega-sized market for economic integration.
China plans to implement 100 small but impactful livelihood projects in member states where needed. Within this year, China will provide 2 billion yuan in grant assistance to member countries. Over the next 3 years, an additional 10 billion yuan in loans will be extended to member banks of the banking consortium.
Despite the diversity of interests ranging from Russia and India to Iran and Myanmar, the summit served as a platform for China to project global influence and promote the idea of a multipolar world order. The grouping's expansion into economics and deeper advocacy for alternatives to Western dominance were on full display. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi's attendance, his first visit to China in 7 years, symbolized a thaw in India-China relations and marked progress in mending ties amid rising tariffs and geopolitical tension. However, analysts are of the view that India's SCO entry potentially challenges Russian and Chinese domination over the association. Despite their trade ties, India is unlikely to offer meaningful support for Russia's war in Ukraine or China's claims to Taiwan and the South China Sea. India has also long sought a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council, but has received only tepid support from China and Russia, possibly to prevent their influence with the West from being diluted. Still, New Delhi stands to lose little as long as Washington continues to broadcast uncertainty with its foreign trade. Meanwhile, India has said it will not sign a joint statement with the SCO because it sees a pro-Pakistan stance in the omission of a mention of a deadly April 22nd terror attack on tourists in Indian-controlled Kashmir, giving a setback to the China-led United SCO front. Meanwhile, the Russian president used the SCO summit to assert that the West's attempts to bring Ukraine into NATO were one of the causes of the war in Ukraine. He added in a speech at the SCO summit that Russia adheres to the principle that no country can ensure its security at the expense of another.
I'd like to use this opportunity to say that Russia uses the same approaches regarding the crisis in Ukraine. I will remind you that this crisis was created not as a result of Russia attacking Ukraine. It emerged as a result of coup d'etat in Ukraine that was provoked and supported by the West. What followed were armed attempts to suppress the resistance of the regions of Ukraine and people of Ukraine who did not accept that coup d'etat.
He further said that he appreciated the proposal of India and China on the Ukraine war.
We value the efforts and propositions to solve the Ukrainian crisis of China, India, and other strategic partners of ours. The mutual understanding that was reached at a recent Russia-US summit in Alaska heads the same direction, I hope. I paves the way to peace in Ukraine, I hope. I will inform my colleagues in more detail on the results of talks in Alaska during our bilateral meetings today and tomorrow.
The leaders of the member states of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, following the meeting of the Council of Heads of Member States in Tianjin on September 1st, issued the Tianjin Declaration. Member states strongly condemned the April 22nd terror attack in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir and called for justice, deliberately avoiding naming Pakistan while rejecting double standards in counter-terror efforts. The declaration framed the SCO as a unified front against terrorism, separatism and extremism, emphasizing that sovereign states bear primary responsibility for managing such threats. Leaders approved a 10-year development strategy for the SCO, including the launch of a development bank and emphasis on security, trade, energy and cultural cooperation. President Xi pledged 10 billion yuan in loans via the proposed SCO Development Bank, along with 2 billion yuan in aid, urging deeper cooperation in infrastructure, energy, AI, and trade. A call was made for inclusive economic globalization and resistance to Cold War mentalities and bloc confrontation, an implicit rebuke of US dominance. The summit saw a thaw in India-China relations. Xi and Modi reaffirmed their countries as development partners, discussing trade and stability ties. Xi emphasized that SCO should shoulder greater responsibility in maintaining regional stability, offering a platform for collective governance. At a moment when wars are reshaping the global order and American leadership feels increasingly unilateral, China is moving decisively to fill the vacuum. This week, Beijing hosts a high-stakes summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a forum that has expanded from a modest security grouping into a bloc spanning 26 nations, 43% of the world's population, and nearly a quarter of global GDP. Branded an axis of upheaval, the gathering's guest list explains why. Leaders from Russia, Iran, India, Pakistan, Belarus, Turkey and Myanmar are in attendance. Nations united less by ideology than by grievances against Washington and its allies. While no defense treaty binds them, the optics are powerful. A coalition of the disaffected convened under China's watch. Vladimir Putin is the guest of honor, embracing a stage where China has become his most crucial lifeline, buying Russian oil and gas, supplying critical components, and shielding Moscow diplomatically. India's Narendra Modi is another symbolic prize. Despite border clashes and a fraught rivalry with Beijing, Modi's presence signals shifting winds. His relations with Washington have soured after President Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods, leaving space for Xi Jinping to exploit. The summit will climax with a vast military parade in Tiananmen Square, commemorating 80 years since Japan's surrender in World War II. Joining Xi and Putin will be North Korea's Kim Jong Un, making his first appearance at a multilateral event of this scale. The message is unmistakable. China is not only flexing military muscle, but asserting political gravity. By convening adversaries of the West, Beijing is positioning itself as the hub of an alternative order, an axis not designed for peace, but to unsettle America's grip on the world.